Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. Thank you for listening. We would like to remind you that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Known as just a silly boy with a feely heart. Please consider supporting the show. Check us out on Patreon or simply leave a review on iTunes. Here's your host and creator of the show, Known Wells.
Hello, Feely Humans. Welcome to another episode of my favorite podcast, You, Me, Empathy. I hope it's your favorite podcast, too. If it's not, and Dax Shepard's podcast is your favorite, or You Made It Weird by Pete Holmes is your favorite, or Terrible Thanks for Asking is your favorite, or Forever 35 is your favorite, or Coming Back is your favorite, or any of the numerous wonderful podcasts out there are your favorite over You, Me, Empathy, that's fine too. I'm just very happy you're here. And today is a new episode. It's episode 89 with my guests. Two guests, in fact. This is a two-parter, very special episode. I talk with Natalie Rodriguez and Alex Montalban. The first hour and 20 minutes or so is with my friend Natalie, and we chat about burnout, and we talk about growing up with an addict father, and we talk about balance when it comes to pursuing our passions and understanding our limitations, and a whole slew of other things. And we also talk about The Extraordinary Ordinary, which is Natalie's new film. She's the writer, director, and producer of The Extraordinary Ordinary, which is a film about three college students finding solace and healing in the arts and overcoming their personal history with mental health. I haven't seen the film yet. I'm excited to see it. Hopefully, I'll be able to see it this Friday, actually, August 23rd, at the Los Angeles Diversity Film Festival. If you go to the show notes for this episode, you can find tickets there to buy, to see The Extraordinary Ordinary and support independent filmmaker Natalie. And I also talk with Alex Montalban, who is one of the actors in the movie, and we talk about why hugs are the best, and being a man, and showing feelings, and growing up in a very sort of feely place. Alex is great, and I had a short chat, but a great chat with him. And so, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's a fun two-parter, and definitely, if you're in the Los Angeles area, go support independent filmmakers. Go to support independent film. The Extraordinary Ordinary is playing at the Los Angeles Diversity Film Festival on August 23rd. I think it's Friday night around 9:15 p.m. Again, you can buy tickets at the show notes for this episode. Okay, before we get to the episode, I did want to say a few things, one of which is right now, Jessica and I are thinking about life insurance, and the whole prospect of that is, it kind of creeps me out just thinking about how much you're worth, and they ask all these questions. You kind of go through a interview and they ask all these questions about medical history and stuff like that, and asking me about my depression and wondering if I've had suicidal thoughts and things like that. And it just feels very judgy and not the right questions. It feels like the questions should be do you value empathy, and how are your relationships built on trust and respect and compassion and those types of things, right? It kind of bums me out to think about a little bit. I don't know if you've gone through a similar thing. If you can relate, let me know, because it's weird, and it's making me feel a little bit icky. The other thing I wanted to mention is, of course, if you haven't left a rating and review for You, Me, Empathy in iTunes, what are you doing with your life? I mean, I know you're busy, but it only takes a couple minutes, and I would be over the moon happy if you did so. So go to iTunes, leave a rating and review, an honest one, for this show. I would be forever grateful. Okay, so let's get into it. Again, This is episode 89 with my guests Natalie Rodriguez and Alex Montalban on burnout, hugs, and a bunch of other stuff, and the wonderful new feature film, The Extraordinary Ordinary. Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our mental health, our neuroses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight, so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being feely humans. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today I'm here with producer, writer, director, just all around lovely human being, Natalie Rodriguez. Hello, Natalie.
Hello. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm very excited to have you. So you and I met briefly in person once.
Yes.
Just to kind of get to know each other. We had a coffee.
Yes.
That was fun.
We did. I think that was somewhere in Brea, correct? It was.
I think so.
Okay, because it was on the opposite side of Brea that I haven't seen yet, just because I'm familiar with Cal State Fullerton area because I went to school there for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But it was a nice little cafe we found. It was kind of kind of reminded me of my area where I'm at in Glendora. So very suburban, quiet, peaceful.
Yeah. And how did that initiation happen? I think we have maybe Rudy Caceres in common,
Yes.
or something, just some mental health awareness people.
Yeah. So I think Rudy, I think did we meet through Rudy? I'm trying to remember because I know Rudy and I met through, I think it was Twitter 2-3 years ago. And then everyone sort of started adding each other on Facebook. So you and I might have been Facebook buddies, and
something
I think
like
I
that.
might have just, I think I either DM'd you or emailed you hey, I saw your podcast. So I think that's how the community kind of works. It definitely, the mental health community seems very similar to TV film. It's kind of everyone adds each other on social and you're wait, have we met? I think I saw you on Facebook. So it definitely seems like a similar kind of community.
Yeah, that's
sure.
interesting. It's definitely from what I've seen on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, it's definitely a growing community and one that's very supportive, I found, which is nice.
Yeah. No, for sure. Which I love too. I mean, Rudy's a great guy, and I always kind of say any friend of Rudy's definitely a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And I think I've been fortunate to meet, I think for the past 3 years, just a lot of people who talk about mental health or just about wellness in general, physical health, how to physically take care of yourself. I've never been so kind. It's sad to say that, but I think it's everyone's very supportive of each other, which I think is key.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to do that for each other.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
So before we get into your story, let's do an emotional check-in. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling actually really wide awake right now.
That's nice.
I know I mentioned before we hopped on the call, I went for an hour walk. So I've been trying to do these 45, 60-minute walks every day. And it's been actually so far, I want to say life-changing. I've noticed my mood's a lot better, or I feel like I don't get myself so burned out because of work or any projects or meetings. I wanted to make that kind of mandatory for me every day to get outside for more than like, I mean, half an hour. Just something about it just really calming and just very like therapeutic. So I'm trying to keep these up because I noticed my mood like right now, I feel awake. I feel very like positive and very like relaxed right now.
That's so good to hear. And it's like we're as a society, we're so obsessed with just go, 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 like a productivity, work your tail off, crush it, whatever. And it's unhealthy. Like and it's such a beautiful reminder when we can go outside, spend an hour and just be so, mentally, emotionally, physically, just be so energized and connected and grounded. Like it's just like we've all experienced that, and yet we still find ourselves in these patterns of unhealth.
Yeah, which is funny you mentioned that because I've been notoriously guilty of that, where you work, and you're thinking, oh, I love my work so much. Let me just keep diving into projects. But that's how I actually got physically and then like mentally drained because you go like, 90 miles an hour and you don't stop to take a break. You're going to eventually like, crash and burn out. So I actually kind of over the past 7 years now, I think we're going on 7, and I mentioned in the past, I go to counseling weekly or every other like week or so. I've been actually relearning how not to get back into those old habits of just working nonstop and then jumping to the next project. Like I actually like am learning how to train myself to take a break, regardless like how busy you are, or regardless if you have like so many tasks to do. It's not worth risking your health for that, especially if you're going to get yourself sick.
Yeah, no, it's great that you're focusing on that, and like. What helps me with that, a good reminder for me, is reminding myself that like even if I love the thing so much, like working on this podcast, I love this podcast. It's my favorite thing to do. But if I'm not careful, I'm gonna burn out, right? Like with anything, like I think we as humans have only a certain capacity. For focus, for mental energy, for emotional energy. And regardless of whether or not we love it so much, we have to set boundaries.
Yeah. No, that's definitely, I think everyone like learns that along the way, especially I think getting older too. Cause I mentioned earlier to a colleague who also does she works in the mental health community. I said, there's always like this, I think things are harder nowadays. For some reason, it feels like things are more expensive or, people aren't getting paid as much at their job or jobs that they're working. People are working at least 2-3 jobs just to survive, just to put a roof over their head. So it's not surprising there's like an increase with anxiety, depression, or some sort of like mental health. I think they're calling it now a crisis. People who are reaching out to hotlines, which it's beautiful. Like there's so many resources like to get help, online, therapy, or, there's crisis texts, which I know people can text if they're going through a hard time just to like chat to a counselor through text messaging or, doctors, physicians themselves. So that's beautiful, but it's also kind of like, I think it's just, there's so much going on in the world. So it's definitely, I think it's hard to like kind of always check in with yourself or remind yourself, hey, you need to go take a 10-minute break, or you need to call it a night and stop working.
Yeah. And it is hard. And I'm with you. I think having those programs is amazing and we need them. And I, as you were saying that, it reminded me that, of course, also that like, it is a privilege to be able to check in with yourself. Like not, taking breaks. Like not everyone can maybe, financially or physically even do that. And it's my hope for the world that we like change the way we look at work, change the way we look at our passions to allow for this stuff, to allow for the open heart stuff that we all need, but like structurally, we're so sort of grounded in, culturally, structurally, societally, so grounded in these systems that are designed to just grind us down.
Yeah.
So how do we change those systems,
Yeah. And I feel I always kind of think that changing that system, because I'm guilty of this too. Like I just get a little personal, but like in counseling these past 2-3 months, I found myself getting so overwhelmed. And then I learned, well, I can't control like how the world goes. I can't control how people react, or if people say something that's offensive. It's like there's kind of that acceptance of, accepting that we can't control everything, or we can't like rescue everyone, especially if we like kind of feel we've done everything we can to be like supportive, or we've done everything we can to something like accomplishing a task for the day. It's kind of acknowledging, okay, try again tomorrow, or you know what, sleep on it before you make a decision. So it's hard. I think it's kind of starts within like the individual and how they, I think, sort of take in comments or what they see going on in the news, kind of not taking things so personal, and kind of learning like how just things aren't in our control, like at all.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I struggle with control a lot myself, and I think about control a lot, because I am one that likes to remind myself that I don't have much control, and that's kind of freeing to me, right? But it does start at that personal level, like understanding that we have limitations, because I get you. Like I get the, what's going on in Sudan right now, like horrifying. And my heart is breaking, and thinking about the injustice that's happening to humanity. And I'm like welling up as I'm talking about it. Is horrifying. And I feel like, obviously there's specific actions you can take, and you can do those things, but you also just feel overwhelmed by like it all. Like how does the world get to a place like that? Right. Or, I was reading this morning, I don't know why I do this to myself. I was reading this morning about a school in Northern California where the state of California is trying to shut down this school, rightfully so, I believe, because this school is essentially punishing people for being gay, taking kids off of antidepressants, cold turkey, punishing people for trying to take their own lives, awful, awful psychological abuses that have been, reported. And, it's overwhelming to think about that stuff, but like you have to come back to like, what can you control? What are the small steps of goodness you can take? What are my limitations, emotionally, and start there.
Yeah, no, limitations is something I've been learning as well too. And I used to be embarrassed. I don't know if you ever felt this way, but I used to be embarrassed. Like, I saw this meme. I think it explains it perfectly. Like going to counseling, and it's a cartoon. One side shows like I think it's a patient. She's silent, and the therapist is like, well, you don't have to talk today if you don't want. And then the second part of the picture shows the patient in like little bubbly quotes. It says, it was somewhere around the lines of, well, I'm just stressed over homework and I feel dumb that this is stressing me out this much. And then like the next, I think the therapist responds, oh, well, no, like you shouldn't feel embarrassed. Like we all react differently to situations, and, your stress is still like important. It doesn't mean it's any less important compared to this situation or this person's situation. So I think definitely that kind of like to always group that with limitations. I think it's because, it's okay to like something like turn, off, social media for a day because you see something that's like triggery, or something that is a little too like difficult to look at or to take in, or it kind of brings out like these intense reaction and these feelings. So I kind of always like to group it, because I saw that meme and I was like, oh yeah, no, that's actually like 100% accurate with, I think, life in general. Just everywhere.
It all comes down to knowing ourselves. Yeah. Knowing our hearts and doing the work of like figuring out our emotions. I'm like a broken record on that, but I think it's so important.
Yeah. No, I do too. 100%. I think it's, as long as you kind of check in with yourself, and it's hard too. Like it's still hard for me to do that today. It's, like, I think, for example, like I went to bed super late yesterday because I fell asleep and took a nap. And, in the past I would have been like, oh, you took a 2-hour nap. Like now you like lost track of time. And I found myself doing that because I had like still work to do. And I was like, well, you know what? You were tired. Like your body was tired. Okay. So it's not like you're doing this every day, or if you were like, your body's trying to say something to you. Like you need
Were you struggling with like the shame of it? Were you thinking like, oh, I'm lazy?
The shame, which is something I was doing for many years throughout like I think it was like 7th grade to about maybe my junior year of college. So I never knew I actually would shame myself until, I guess just 3 years of counseling, until my therapist was like, yeah, you need to stop doing that. She's like, I need you to go out this Friday, go to the bar or the club with your friends. Like my therapist would have to start telling me like things to do. She's like, I better hear next session that you didn't like stay in and like work that night, that you actually went out and did something. Or if you didn't go out, I want to hear, hey, I was sitting in bed all night watching Netflix. Like, so it's kind of, I used to do that, a lot of shaming, which I'm still trying to figure out. I'm wondering if that's always like connected to anxiety, or if it is like a sort of a kind of like a struggle with like a self-love because of something that kind of started like with always like working hard, or kind of like almost like having like a workaholic problem even.
Yeah. So where do you feel, what was your childhood like? Did your parents work hard? Do you feel like you got some of that from them?
My dad's family, very hardworking. I think that's where I get definitely the art side from them. I know my dad, when he was in high school, he got offered to be an actor, but I mean, if I may be blunt, my dad wanted to party, and actually led to some alcoholism and drug abuse. But I know like a lot of the kind of being outspoken, being passionate, a lot of that does come from like my dad. I mean, and his 2 older sisters, one was a model. I think she was like Miss Santa Fe Springs, like in 1963, 64.
Who? One of your aunts?
One of my aunts was.
Oh, wow.
I never knew about that until years later when I saw a picture. I was like, oh, this looks like, I'm like, is this a catalog or was this headshots? And they're like, oh yeah, your aunt was like Miss Santa Fe Springs, back in high school. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, that's awesome. Like, why? I didn't know that. So I definitely, that was kind of like my childhood. And I think a lot of it was, one of my dad was like the first people that saw me writing. I would actually handwrite my stories. And actually, I wish I had a picture of that. Like these really like gnarly bruises on my thumb and my finger, just from like gripping on the pencil so like hard as I was writing in a journal.
How old were you at that time?
I want to say I was about 11 when I started doing that.
Okay. What you'd write stories, fictional stories?
Yeah, fictional stories. And then I was rewriting a short story that I had to do in the 5th grade. I went to this school in Diamond Bar called Quail Summit, and each year all the students of every grade had to write a short story and then make that short story look like a book. So it was kind of like a writing / arts and crafts project. And once I was done with that project, because I actually had like a lot of fun writing that. And at the time I was like obsessed with like scary stories. I think they actually just made the film's coming out about that. Scary stories for kids. I was obsessed with those. So I was very much on the scary movie, like thriller, drama side. So I think that's how to blast just doing the project. And every kind of summer, whenever I was off school, I would always like try to rewrite the story, because I'm like, oh, it'd be a lot cooler if that project went another way, or I should make it longer. So that's when kind of the journaling started happening. Yeah.
Now, I could go 2 ways. Well, I'm curious about like your experience with your father's alcoholism and drug, like how, what did you witness any of that? Like, how did that impact you?
No, I mean, I'm like trying to keep PG, but no, I mean, it got really like pretty bad, like as I got older. I think because I think because when you're a kid, there's like things like my dad was like the fun kid. I was like, oh, dad's like friends with my friends. He gets along with like my friends' parents. But years
That's
later,
pretty common for addicts to be the friendly source, right?
Yeah. So I learned years later, and I still talk about today, like I'm still like in some sort of like recovery mode from talking about it. Or even today, my therapist will be like, no, that's not normal. Like that's actually abnormal. And I'm like, oh, oh, really? I was like, back then it looked like it was cool. Like, my dad would, I think every weekend, like he would buy at the time, it was, I think they were called Polly Pockets. So they were kind of like the knockdown versions of Barbie dolls.
Sure,
And
I remember those.
yeah, and Brat. So he'd be like, I got like a paycheck, I got a raise. Let's go. Like, I'll take Toys R Us. So Toys R Us was like a thing. Santa Fe Springs Swamp Meet, just because he lived over there. And him and my parents, my mom had split when I was about, I want to say 8, 9 years old.
So you live with your dad mostly, or between the two?
With my mom. So I would go see my dad pretty much every weekend. And I think it was like Wednesday nights or Thursday nights. I think it was like, I think it's common for most divorced households. Like the dad would usually take like the child out to dinner or take them out for a few hours before dropping them off back at home.
How was was it weird, the divorce? Like, was it weird that you had, or was that just your normal?
At the time, it just seemed normal. It was like, oh, makes sense. As sad as that is to say, but I think I learned too. It's just, I think because I used to feel so like ashamed about that, like years later, like, oh God, like I have like, a dad that's drinking heavily. And I think as I got older, I was just more outspoken about it, especially once I started, I think, collaborating with like other individuals, advocates such as Rudy at the Mighty, or even like I got a contributor position at the Huffington Post about 3 years ago. And one of them asked, hey, we saw your article about being a child of an addict. Can you like elaborate? And it was kind of like no turning back. I was like, you know what, let me confide with some family friends, close colleagues. And I think I was amazed how many people can relate to my upbringing, or just a lot of like, kind of the family dynamics where some family members are addicts, or, some are, even like hospitalized or have a mental health disorder that leaves them kind of, unable to leave the house or able to potentially like function, I guess, maybe like in I want to say like a quote unquote normal setting. So yeah. I think it was through the writing, definitely, that kind of, I think, opened up more doors. I want to say, I think maybe kind of realized like, hey, this is so common. Like maybe I should start talking about it. And then especially when I started writing about it, like I have, of course, on Facebook, I have cousins, uncles, aunts, like, on both sides of the family. And I was like, oh shoot, I can't post this. Like, I don't want to upset anyone. But when I did, I wrote an article about, I think my, child of addict, I want to say a month or two ago. I actually got reconnected with a cousin of mine on my dad's side. So it was kind of like a aha moment, like, oh, cool. Okay. So she kind of did something about this, but she does more like stand-up comedy and acting. So when we kind of reconnected, it was like hey, so I act about this. I actually do this character based on her mom, who's actually like still an addict. And I kind of share my story, and we're both kind of like, oh, that's funny. And we're like, oh, that's kind of sad. But you know what? That kind of shows like how, I think our lives do impact our own work, especially I think if you're entertainment, writing, directing, producing, or making music or painting. I think definitely it shapes, your work and who you are today.
I'm just curious, like, your dad being sort of the friendly, happy, like, so he was a friendly, happy addict. He was never violent or aggressive or anything like that?
I won't lie. I mean, to other people, yeah, getting into fights, which I didn't see until maybe I said there's like one bad incident where he actually, and I hope it's okay to say this, but he actually punched it was my stepdad at the time, like years ago. And I think once I saw that happen, I was like, oh yeah, this isn't normal. This is like very like severe. So I think when that incident happened, that was when I think like addiction or something such as rehab started coming up, like in both sides of the family, both my dad's side and even my mother's side. And a lot of comments like, oh, we kind of always knew like addiction around in the family. We just kind of ignore it. We don't want to help someone if they kind of don't want help. So I think that kind of, that was definitely like an eye opener, because years later, even until this day, like I'm kind of a little bit more open about things like with my dad. I think especially because it does, I think, tie into, I do think that's how a lot of my anxiety developed at a younger age. But it's also like, it's kind of amazing how a lot of, both relatives, non-relatives related will still get like, I don't want to talk about it. Anyway, so how's like, how's everything else? And you're like, oh, people are still like, don't want to talk about it. Like, that's like, I'm kind of like surprised I do, because I'm kind of in a place where millionaires never thought I would like talk about that so openly, or just more about like, kind of more about like the recovery side, or kind of like symptoms of like, hey, this is like, when you gotta, put like boundaries with people, and definitely had to do that. Both my dad, both a lot of relatives, because I think I was starting to get like a lot higher anxiety, like as I got to, I think my sophomore year of college, I want to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So seeing your dad every weekend, him not obviously being a very effective parent, I imagine.
Yeah.
You maybe developing some anxiety there. What was it like on your mom's side? Did you feel supported and loved?
Yeah. No, definitely my mom's side. That's where I get like the film bug from her, just because she watched everything from, God, I'm thinking like Scream to the infamous American Beauty, films like that. So kind of that was kind of my mom and I, and even her mother, when my grandmother, her mom was alive. We would usually like all kind of watch movies together. And as a kid, I would often go to the movies with my mom and my grandma. And it'd be more like my mom, I think, took me to see like Mystic River. It's like a hard rated R movie by Clint Eastwood about
that's
I saw that.
Devastating movie.
Yes. So beautiful, but it's so devastating. But I remember seeing films like that, like on that genre, like very like the low independent film side, or films made under like 10 million with my mom. And my mom I'd be like, oh, isn't this rated R, Mom? She'd be like, yeah, but I don't, just watch it with me, because like no one else wants to watch this, so I just figure I'd take you. I'd be like, okay, cool. So she'll be like, during like, where they're cussing, or if there's any like, explicit content, she's like, when I tell you to cover your eyes, you better cover your eyes, or I'm just gonna cover your eyes for you.
Were you raised in a religious house?
I wasn't, actually, no.
Okay.
Both my parents were. My dad, I think, was Christian, and then my mom her parents were hardcore Catholics. So it's interesting because, usually you think if the parents were kind of born and raised Christian or Catholic, it would kind of carry on to the child. But
sure.
No, my mom, my dad, they kind of were like, oh, yeah, I guess we can go to church. Just kind of were like nonchalant, like really like, if, I was begging them, I wanted to go, they would take me. So yeah, that was kind of like, I think they were trying to like kind of set their own rules, especially I think my mom's side was a little conservative, where it wasn't common for a lot of women on the family to get a full-time job after high school or go to college. It was kind of like, marry the man that you're dating as you graduate high school, have kids, have the man, provide. So I'm very fortunate that my mom was never that. I think she never really wanted that for me. I think she knew since day one. I was telling her I want to make movies. She was like, yeah, I know I can't tell you to not do that, because you're just going to do it anyways.
So you have a pretty strong will, and kind of like to seek what you want.
Yeah, I think years later, especially like having both my parents tell me, or even my cousin who I just reconnected with, they've all told me like, yeah, as a child, you said you want to be like Steven Spielberg. I'm like, wait, when did I say that? Like, oh, you're like 3 or 4. And I'm like, I was like, I knew who Steven Spielberg was. So I'm more like, wait, really? You guys are just making that up. And they're like, no, we remember you saying that. So I think definitely, the art side, that definitely comes from, I want to say from both sides of the family. Because definitely, my dad was a big music guy. He loved bands like Led Zeppelin, I'm thinking like Motley Crue, like classic rock or like classic heavy metal. So that kind of always, like when I started writing, I would listen to a lot of that music. And I think my passion for like a lot of independent features came from seeing, films that nobody but my mother knew about, because it was just right before these films, such as Mystic River, went to the Oscars, or before they got, I want to say, like nationwide distribution where they were showing in more theaters.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think definitely, I asked her too, most recently, like, did you ever want to be an actress, or was like you or dad ever trying to be writers? And both my parents had 9-to-5 jobs. My dad worked, I think, at Caltrans for like 25 years until he retired. And my mom's been with the same company for like 26, 27 years. So,
and they're still around?
Are they what?
They're still alive, your parents?
Yeah, they're both still alive. Yes.
Do you have siblings?
I have step siblings. I do.
Okay.
Yeah. I post my niece from time to time on Instagram. She's a girl with the curly, she has curly hair, and my stepsister's like, we never curl it. It just does that naturally. Yeah.
And so you mentioned, writing some articles over the last 2-3 years,
yeah.
Is that kind of when you started really opening up about your mental health, or did it happen before that in a more sort of private way with friends?
Definitely through the writing, which I'm glad you asked, because I didn't notice that until I think when I did my last article about a month or two ago, where I had a cousin reach out to me. I was talking about growing up with what it's like to kind of grow up with a parent who has a drinking problem, and kind of dealing with some family members who acknowledge it, or some, like many, the elephant in the room, they're like, oh, don't look at it, ignore it.
Yeah.
So I think it was through writing, it kind of, I don't want to say forced me, but I think it definitely motivated me to kind of take, I guess, the power back, not feeling ashamed, staying true to my roots. My whole thing was I never wanted I always want to stay true to myself. If someone's going to ask me something, such as with my dad, it's no, we had a falling out because of, his history of drinking. And it's okay. It's common. I think it's one of those, I hope it works out in the future. So I think that definitely came from writing, because it was kind of me writing it, and then someone would either retweet it on Twitter, or I think something such Huffington Post. And even the Mighty, they kind of were like, hey, we saw your article, we'd like to feature it. So it kind of would start with a small company, and then kind of go more to, I think, I don't want to say corporate, but I guess more or less a company that's been around a little bit longer, like the Mighty or Huffington Post.
But, help me understand, because that seems like a big jump, starting with oh, now I'm going to be open about my mental health and start writing articles. Tell me about the process of leading up to developing the courage to do that.
Honestly, I have to say that has to be the first time I wrote a blog. It was for, they were called originally Break the Stigma, and then they changed to Defeat the Stigma. I want to say so, maybe 2016. It could be off on the year. I wrote a blog. I think it was a gentleman who was running his nonprofit group. They were advocating for mental health awareness. And they were known for doing cross-country runs. So they would run for mental health over in Wisconsin, South Dakota, and I think Kansas, Missouri. So they were more on the Midwest. And I want to say we met through, I think it was Twitter. Instagram is the hashtag started becoming a thing. And I think he commented, and I looked at his stuff, DM'd him and said, hey, I looked you up. If you ever need help, let me know. And he actually had asked me to write an article on mental health, because I had just made a film on, I think it was on suicide awareness. I'd promoted it, and then I mentioned how, ironically, I was going to be doing a feature on young adults and characters having a history of anxiety or depression, or coming from a background with trauma. And I think that kind of just happened. I think because it was coming from a business perspective, as more hey, since you asked me about writing, can I send you more stuff? Maybe, we can partner up. So that kind of, I think, started slowly growing, because he would start promoting my blogs on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I think that's when the app came out to repost on Instagram. So where you can kind of promote the company that posts your pictures on their platforms. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think that kind of just, I don't want to say took off, but that kind of got comments or DMs, or someone would ask, hey, we saw that you're a writer. We'd like to republish this. Can we share it? So a lot of the sharing on social media became, I think, a bigger thing. I think I want to say on Twitter, because Twitter, I'm shocked I had that many followers. But I think that came from just writing. They would start resharing, and the hashtagging that amazes me how those hashtags can really just drive in, I think, other individuals who are looking for content to repost, or just to sort of collaborate with another individual. So that kind of just happened, and that went on for a good, I want to say maybe year and a half before I started doing cold pitches, where I was hey, I want to actually try to get this on, a website. And that's when I started looking up different, I think there was different newsletters I'd sign up for, and one's called freelance writer. There's another called coffee writer, and a lot of them were trying to have looking for articles on wellness, looking for articles on mental health, physical health related, how to stay healthy. So I would just pitch it, just send them like, my biography. And that kind of just did that for, 2 years, like writing for free or kind of doing more, I guess kind of like volunteer work, they'd be like, hey, we'd like to republish it. I'd be like, oh, okay. Like, how the post look? And if I liked it, if I got good vibes from them, I'll be like, yeah, go ahead and post it. I'd love to retag it once it's alive.
So, and all of that is awesome. And I commend you for doing that work. I'm interested in your sort of emotional state as you started opening up about your own mental health, as you started opening up about, living with an addict and like where was your emotional state at? And how did it feel when you got a reaction?
Definitely emotional state. I don't know if it's a bad thing to say, but I think I was so immersed in the work, just because this when I was like, I think still in college. So I was consistently writing something, whether it was a thesis paper. So
were you in therapy at that time when you were starting to write these articles?
Yeah, no, I was.
Okay.
So my therapist was, of course, like my first, I guess, person to know. I was like, I think with the first blog, I'm like, so I wrote a blog on mental health and she was like, oh, that's great. That's exciting. I'm like, yeah, I don't know how I feel. Because I posted it and my whole fear was, and I think it's a common fear for many people when they come forth and say, hey, I have a history of mental health or hey, I have, panic attacks. I was so afraid, like, well, what do people say? Like, what if I was like, what if someone says something mean to me? And that's when that whole kind of check-in came in with like, you can't control if people want to say something mean or they want to, block you or just like tear you down for doing something that's considered a passion project or something that you believe in. So I think still processing that thing. Like, how do I feel? What are people going to think? But subconsciously, because I was posting it, I always saw that as a way of, I wanted to start like talking about it. And I think it's like the more DMs or comments I would see on those posts from friends and colleagues saying, hey, like, I can relate, or hey, like, that's cool you did that. I had no idea you were going through that. Like, I'm actually going through to therapy myself. I can't tell you how many times I got private messages like we're friends and colleagues and I've met, in work fields or I've known for years saying, oh my God, you go to therapy too. That's awesome. Like, I go as well. Like, how do you like it? I like it. Or, hey, it's a hard time for me to go. So I think it was those words that were keeping me motivated to keep going. So made me feel like, okay, so it seems like there's a positive impact. And it kind of felt really at first scary because I think I mentioned this to you in the past and even to Rudy from the Mighty. I was like, yeah, I try to be upfront with individuals like, hey, I'm not a therapist or I'm not licensed to give you medical advice. Yes. Which I still talk about today, even in counseling. I'll be like, so I posted this and that, but like I wrote this message, here it is. And my therapist will be like, no, that's wise. Like, that's smart. Like, that's good. Like, keep doing that. So I think once I started, like, I started getting more DMs, like, cause I've had DMs where people were opening up like, very triggery or very like personal matters. I was kind of like, hey, I think you should talk to someone.
Yeah.
So I think it was words like that, like hearing those words, hey, I can relate to it, or hey, that's awesome. Like, I had no idea, like, you have like panic attacks. I can never tell. Those are kind of actually would make me like giggle a bit because I was like, okay, so, it's interesting because it just seems like those kind of comments, it got me thinking on, I didn't think it was ignorant. It felt more like, it seems they're just like, oh, people don't always have to look physically like hyperventilating, which is a common symptom for anxiety or panic attack. It's sometimes people are more, it's an internal process. So it seemed like more those comments were making me think, oh, I think they're wanting to learn more about it, or they like are kind of like figuring out like, oh, mental health is not always the same for people.
Yeah.
So I think that was what I was fortunate. I think those positive comments or feedback, it definitely, I'm really, I don't say lucky, but I can't, I have to say, like, I have to credit to, family, friends who were like, hey, that's cool, or
that's
keep
great.
us posted.
Yeah. It's very validating, when you share something vulnerable and then you're met with this like, oh, I relate, or oh, you made me think about
Yeah.
this, my life in this way. Like it's such a, yeah, and it makes you want to keep doing it, right?
Yeah. Keep doing it, or I think that's the word, validating. And I think it's 99% of the time, especially today. And I'm sure you might have this too, but I feel like everyone I kind of meet has some sort of history with anxiety. Like it's half of them will start talking to me about like, oh, I go to therapy, like this is what I'm doing, or, I take medicine, but I just got off medicine. So I've been more like, it's kind of been both validating and actually relieving. Just because there's such a big stigma. And I think I mentioned this when we first met a few months ago. There's such a stigma with, I think, mental health or getting professional help, whether it's seeing a psychiatrist, psychologist, or even going to like treatment, some sort of recovery, and entertainment. Entertainment, I think, half the people in the entertainment industry, music, TV, film, theater, struggle with anxiety, depression, because it's a very on the go kind of field. And it still amazes me that, there's still like a lot of shaming going around, because it's 99% of the time people who I've had those experiences I've met who shame therapy are the ones who are actually like secretly going to therapy. So it's kind of interesting. Like I've been learning that like today, that's where I'm kind of at today. Like, oh, but everyone kind of has like some sort of experience. Everyone's felt anxious or sad. So
Of course. And we all, of course, have, like, I feel like as humans, we are all very unique, certainly.
Yeah.
But the more we can come to terms with the fact that we are also very much the same, and we have things in common, the more easier it is to find those pathways to connection and learning from each other. Don't you think?
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. Just because we all have our own stories, right? I mean, we can relate to other people's stories, but there's something about ours that makes us unique. And I think that's kind of something I've learned through a lot of mental health advocacy groups or communities, especially on the writer side, because a lot of times when you write about mental health, they would send you what not to say or kind of like what to sort of focus on and then like not to steer away from. And they would mention a lot of that, like, you're all unique, you all have like a story, you all have a reason to like talk about what you want, something that you're passionate about.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about the entertainment industry and sort of like the shaming going on, and because I mean that's troubling to hear, in such an environment where, as you pointed out, like, or as we were talking about, closer to the beginning, it's such a pressure cooker of an environment.
Yeah.
Where therapy should be like, not mandatory, but like it should be a thing that's like encouraged.
Yeah. I'm always like still, I feel like I get caught in that circle of like, I want the answers, I want to figure it out. But I have actually learned through counseling, because it was getting to the point where I was letting it bother me so much for some reason. I think because it could be just I was trying to find answers or trying to understand individuals, especially in the entertainment field where we see movies, we see music that's talking about anxiety, depression, suicide awareness, even rehab. We see so many of these subjects already touched upon, over the course of like 40 to 50 years. So it always boggles me. And I think what I've learned over time, it's kind of, you can't control it, or it's like you have to learn when to like start coming to like social media, when to start removing individuals who are slamming it publicly, or, if they're mocking you because, you're having an off, especially I know this is common, off mental health day. It's kind of like one of those two, like, well, they're not meant to be in my life, or I just have to like, turn them off somehow and like kind of shut out like that noise. But there are individuals too who do, fortunately, and I think this is what keeps me focus on this more. I do my best to focus on this like every day, especially when I have, if I get like comment, even today, and I'm sure like, everyone will experience this. Like I had someone say not too long ago, aren't you embarrassed to put stuff out there because you have anxiety? Like you're going to ruin your career. And, comments like those, sometimes, I'm human, of course, like it will bother me, but I want to say what keeps me, I think, definitely grounded is not only counseling, but I think it's definitely taking fortunately that step back now and saying, okay, I think they're onto something personal where I don't think they notice like they either A, can relate to this, or B, it's triggering them in a way that, maybe they don't know how to get help with, or they don't know if they're capable of getting help. I think that's what's been, no, it's okay. That's what's keeping me grounded. It's kind of thinking like that as hard as it is, but I think once you start thinking like that, I feel it truly does like bring in the individuals who are supportive, even if they're not outspoken about it, especially entertainment. A lot of them will feel comforted, I think, to work with you, or I think a lot of times too, just to even talk to you, especially on set, where sets can be on set anywhere from like, minutes to hours. And I'm very big on that too, especially with The Extraordinary Ordinary, the feature. I was very big on, hey, I need you guys to like sleep. I don't want you guys to burn yourself out. And I need you guys to go talk to a therapist or a doctor if you're feeling like things are becoming overwhelming. So I think once I started doing that, especially with the feature film we shot last year, it sort of made me also do that for every like aspect of my life, which is like, hey, I'm here as a friend to listen, but if you're having a hard time, I think you should go talk to someone. And I think because I'm in entertainment, most of my colleagues and, of course, close friends or even some relatives are working in industry. So I think it's kind of more like a comfort. I think they feel validated if I say something like that, or vice versa. If they have to remind me that, it's more like okay, like, this is like, it's not going to ruin my career. Maybe it's just like a minute where I need to like turn off the phone, turn off the computer, or reschedule. I know rescheduling is like a huge thing in the industry too, especially. So I think that's kind of where I'm at now. I mean, it's hard, I'll admit, but I think it's one of those, I think you just have to like mentally like self-talk yourself that like as time goes on, it's just like, hey, if someone's not supportive, there's nothing you can do. I mean, that's on them. I always say just kind of end it on a good note. If you have to be like, hey, I'm sorry I feel that way, but something with mental health, I'm going to talk about it because I feel it can like help benefit someone. So it's kind of, it's always like a catch, isn't it? It's kind of like always trying to want to do like the right thing.
Yeah. I mean, I may be, so I'm struggling with my question to you probably is like, how do we change the industry? I'm not in the industry. So like when you give me an example of like someone saying, asking you like, well, aren't you embarrassed, about sharing about your anxiety, or taking the time to treat your anxiety, or taking a mental health day? Like, I would say to that person, absolutely not. And I think it's important to, talk about this stuff. And I think it's important for you as well. Like, maybe that's like one person changed at a time. Like, so like, cause I think that that response, that question from that person is probably just ignorance. I don't think they mean to be mean or anything. Yeah. It's just ignorance. And so how do we change the industry? Like how, like you being in the industry and making an environment that is open to that stuff and giving people opportunities to go to therapy and making sure that they're taking rest breaks. Like that's a beautiful thing. Like how does that permeate Hollywood, big Hollywood,
What comes to my mind is, because that's such a good question. It's always come to, I think it starts to how a production office or production set is ran. It's, if you have, and this is such a common thing, if you have someone in an authority role, and often it's going to be the director, because usually they're the ones that will say like, let's move on, or, hey, like that's it for today. If they're just being terrorizing everyone, of course you're going to have people on set who are going to start, I truly believe, getting mentally and then physically sick, especially. So
it starts with leadership, is what you're saying.
Leadership, for sure. Communication. I mean, I think and which shocks me because I've had those incidents. I think I mentioned this to you. Like I've been fired from a job because I actually had to start going to therapy weekly because I was having higher anxiety. I was depressed. And I remember my therapist was like, I need you to show up here. She's like, I don't care if you have to leave work early. You've got to figure it out. Like, I need you to come in here weekly. And I got fired. And I remember I went to my boss at the time. I was like, but I was like, I'm coming to you, like, this is a medical reason. And they're like, oh, like, we're all stressed here. Like, you can't get priority. And I think that's what made me realize it's, well, communication, like it's a situation I was communicating how I was feeling, why I felt like it was okay to get like a pass, like to go I think it was every Friday afternoons I was going. So I kind of think if you have someone in an authority role, leadership role, it's, if you're kind of trying to explain to them about your health, you have to explain to anyone in a leadership role saying, hey, I'm throwing up, like I can't come to set today. And if they're giving you like a hard time, it's kind of like, to me, I just feel like they're just not, I don't want to say they're not like a good person, but I think something is kind of is not going on right in their life.
They're buying into the machine. They're buying into the, the soul crushing machine that is like, work and productivity and that's what I wonder all the time. Cause like, I think the same applies, or similarly to like the corporate world. Like I've worked jobs where it was very unhealthy and I never lasted because of that. And now I'm at a place where my day job is very, it's like what you're trying to give your actors. It's very warm. It's very supportive. It's very, it's very generous in time off. It's very like, we have to, like my boss, like take your vacation, like it's very warm and supportive. And so like, how do we, I guess it starts with leadership is what you're saying. And just kind of over time, hopefully that changes.
No, and I think so too. I mean, it's, and I'm still learning that too, because it's so interesting because I feel like even if you try to escape it, like the job I got fired from because I said, I have to go to therapy weekly, like I can come back, like even offered. I feel like if someone's coming to you saying like, hey, I'm going through a hard time, I really need to like get help. I'll make up the hours. I'll do this and that. I feel like let that person, I feel like that's them already like trying to overwork themselves. So I feel there's no reason to be like, no, you can't, do that. You need to kind of, like you said, you got to be part of the machine and work until you're like sick. It's almost like kind of that mentality of like, I think there's too many work industries, not just entertainment, but even I have a lot of friends who work like in nursing or going to nursing school or who are trying to become doctors, nurses, lawyers. And when I was confiding to them about like that situation where I got fired from a TV show last fall, they were like, oh yeah, that's happened to me before too. Or, that's why I'm quitting my job because they're like, yeah, I'm like losing my mind. I would have friends quote say that, I'm losing my mind and it's not worth it. So I think it's kind of like you mentioned, it's, that support team. It's sometimes, if it happens once, you're hoping the next time it won't ever happen again on a job or at, a project that you're a part of. But I think it's kind of inevitable if it does. I feel like I think the individual will be able to know when to like leave sooner versus like trying to stick it out and they have like a bad feeling about it because it's a physical or kind of like your well-being, mentally.
It makes me very sad.
Yeah.
Like it makes me sad to think about it. Like, are you aware of any groups or organizations that like go into production houses, go into sets, film sets and try to teach about, emotional awareness, mental health awareness?
I really don't.
Good, because I'm gonna create that company.
Yes. No, I never thought about that.
It's one of my goals.
No, and I really think that's like actually, I think I mentioned to like my therapist once. I was like, yeah, I don't get why. Because I've been told like on the feature, I had one of my cast members say, "You're so nice," and I was like, "Why? Why would it be me?" And I was like actually like very confused. I'm like, "Are they joking?"
You're like, I'm just me.
Yeah, and it's like I think when I started hearing their stories, like I was so like appalled. They were like, well, no, like the last director I worked with was like making me do like 80 takes of this line. And my line was like, I think it was like, how are you? I don't want to do that. And I'm like, oh, maybe they're trying different. Like, I was like trying not to judge someone's work ethic, but I was like, oh, maybe they're just trying to get you like different looks. Like, no. They're like, they were just doing that just to like overwork us. Like they were trying to keep us like 16 hours each day, like just to like waste time. And I felt, and same thing like you're saying, I was like, so like disgusted, appalled, like sad. And I was like, wait, does no one not like try to set the ground here? Like, hey, if you're not feeling good, you can talk to me. Like, it's kind of like common sense, right? That's how we kind of I kind of think like kindergarten days, it's, there's like that saying where it's like, even adults need naps, even adults need, to go for a walk or to like step out.
That's how we be our best selves.
Yeah.
Like, so like pitching it to like some, head of Paramount or whatever, I don't know the head of Paramount, but like pitching to some head of like some big movie studio, maybe like we have to speak a little their language and say, look, your people will be better off. They will be more efficient. They will have clearer headspace. They will be kinder and gentler to the people who are under them. And therefore that can lead to, greater happiness in the group and fewer people leaving and, lesser costs because you don't have to rehire people No,
and I think you're onto something by saying that, because I want to say, I think because there's a lot of the beauty of this too. And I think this is like a very positive outcome. And I really do think I strongly believe it's going to be changing over time. Like I feel very confident, like something such as the entertainment industry. I really think because there's been so many, of course, as you know, there's been so many breaking globally, global and both US based news about, people in a position of power, producers. We've seen so many producers, of course, during the Me Too movement lose their jobs because there's things such as sexual harassment, or because, years later, someone will come forth and be like, this director, was making me physically sick and didn't care because they said, oh, it's for the role. You have to be physically sick to, achieve this performance. And I think that's what's becoming, it's sad, but it's also very relieving to see okay, good. They're taking the power back by speaking up and saying, well, someone that actress who was terrorized by a director is now directing, and she's saying, this is how, the set's around, the minute I see someone terrorize another person, cast or crew, they're fired. There's without a doubt, there's they lay the ground rules up front. So I'm hoping, because more people are starting to do that, and individuals who I want to say who have been in the industry a little bit longer, or especially, a lot of actors or a lot of people are starting to own companies where they're trying to focus on the positivity side. I think of Reese Witherspoon, because she does very, her company does very female driven positivity, women supporting women. Well, and I think it's beautiful because I'm like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Yes, keep promoting that, because I think the more they keep making noise about that, I feel like it's going to be hard for individuals to stay quiet on sets or in a work environment where someone is being unfortunately abusive, verbally, physically. There's, where there's something where there's going to sexual harassment, or someone who's being worked until they almost collapse. I think seeing people like Reese Witherspoon or individuals even outside the entertainment industry just talk about the work field in general, I think it's going to encourage and motivate others. Hey, worst case is that I just have to quit this job, or what, if I'm feeling sick, is it really something I want to do? No, I can find something else where they're going to be supportive. So I'm hoping that's what's going to happen, because I feel, because a lot of individuals in entertainment do run their own organizations, mental health, or a lot of that is about self-love, positivity. So when I see those, that actually, I actually feel my shoulders slowly descending, because I'm just okay, good. That's awesome. I think the more noise there is within the industry, especially in my field, I think it's going to be hard to stay quiet on and just, to ignore. And I feel people who are trying to go against that and trying to be that, that terrorizing person, they're just going to get shut out unless they change their ways. Right. And if they don't, it's do you really want someone like that involved, in your life, work, personal related?
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope so too.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit, so for me and the listener's sake, you made this feature film, The Extraordinary Ordinary.
Yes.
Can you give me a little synopsis about it, and then we'll kind of get into it a bit?
Yeah, of course. Extraordinary Ordinary, it's an upcoming feature film. It's a narrative fiction that deals with three young adults and how they cope with old wounds when a lot of triggers resurface in their present day life. So we do focus on the aftermath of either a mental health disorder such as anxiety, depression, PTSD, as well as the aftermath of trauma. Two of the characters are trauma survivors. So it deals with anywhere the recovery stage deals with from a year to 8 years with amongst the three characters.
Gotcha. And how long did it take to work on this movie? How long were you working on it before? Like, how long was the shoot? Tell me all about that. I'm curious.
Well, originally, I think I might have mentioned it before, the script was something I started writing in high school.
Oh, wow.
It was something I was sleeping, dreaming about. Like, I kept thinking about these, like, three, like, people who were older than me. And I'm like, who are these people? So that's how I kind of was writing it. Was if I kept waking up thinking about it, went to bed thinking about it, I was like, let me try writing it. So I think I was like 14 when I wrote the opening pages. And then I was like, okay, I don't know what else to write. I'm going to like come back to it later. So I came back to it later, like when I was my senior year. So my senior year, I actually completed like 2 drafts. And the irony is the original story for The Extraordinary Ordinary ended up becoming like a separate project. So I was like back to square one. And then in college, my junior year in a screenwriting class, I picked up an old script of The Extraordinary Ordinary and reworked it. My screening class, my teacher assigned us we had to spend a semester like doing an outline, a treatment, and then watching other films that our professors assigned us individually saying, hey, I think you should just film as a format. And the film I got was Ordinary People, which is hands down, I think it's one of the most beautiful films like to date. It deals with suicide awareness and the aftermath of trauma recovery and grief. Mm-hmm. And my teacher was like, watch this. And I was like, I don't want to watch it. Can't you give me a different movie? So he kept saying, no, you have to watch this. Here's a DVD. Literally brings his own copy of the DVD to me to class one day. So I think that put me on the right, or the project it is today, where it deals with mental health, recovery, because I think I was always trying to write that in the earlier drafts with The Extraordinary Ordinary. But to be honest, I think I couldn't find the words. I think I was confused. Like, I think with like when you're creating anything, I think there's moments where you're like, I know what to say, but I don't know how to find the words. So I felt like everything up until that screening class, things finally clicked for the film, wrote the script. And then for the next, I want to say 3 years in between, like, working day jobs or in between making other short films, I was always coming back to the script. And I was like, I want to make this. I don't know how. So what happened was, I want to say maybe about 2 years before we started filming the feature, I met Madison Bullock. We actually kind of like how you and I we became friends on Facebook first, and then I think like Instagram and Twitter. And we had mutual friends because we all went to like the same. I went to like a film program after college, and she was part of, I think, the founding father company. It was called Playhouse West. And I was part of like the sister company that they were trying to start like a school for like just directors, producers, and writers. So I think when I met with her, I'm trying to think, because I think we just like would comment each other's pictures. Like I saw her posting film stuff. I'd be like, oh, congrats, this looks awesome. And then we kind of did that. And then I want to say I made a short film of the feature, like a sizzle, like as a pitch. Because as I was always going, like in progressing with other projects, I was always like trying to figure out for The Extraordinary Ordinary, how can I get this made? Like if I want to write and direct something, maybe I have to do a short film. So I would save up, we get friends, colleagues, or referrals of close friends and colleagues to make a short. So I shot a short for The Extraordinary Ordinary originally back in 2016. And I actually had Madison come to an earlier table read for that. And kind of like the cliche saying with like a lot of entertainment, I think I had the wrong producers on board for the feature originally, where I think like I was trying to hire Madison like since day one for the leading role, Erica, who she plays. And I think it was like my now former producers, one of them would like not respond to her or respond to a lot of people who I luckily was able to track down and said, hey, I still want to get you for this role behind the scenes in front of the camera. So it kind of was a lot of that. I mean, I think like this film has gone through like the ringer. I mean, can't say, like everything ran smoothly. I mean, a lot of it came from where fortunately having the wrong people involved in the beginning. And then I would always just be like, well, let me try it again. And I think once I brought Madison on board and then I started kind of hearing more about her background and kind of seeing, like how much she wanted to be involved, it sort of like flourished from there where I feel like it was more like a positive outcome. I think having her on board, it definitely got me like more aware of like who to bring on board and who to maybe even like interview more. And that kind of how it went. It was just kind of like always like her and I just kept in touch for about a good year until we actually shot a sizzle pitch video. I want to say 6-7 months before we shot the feature last May 2018. So that kind of was definitely kind of always kept going. I mean, a difficult process, but I think it was one of those just kind of go back to like day and night. I couldn't stop thinking about the project. And I'm like, maybe I should just get it made. Like, there's a thing where I was learning a lot of writer directors were self-funding their feature films, or they were making it for pennies to free, or, I think that started to encourage me too. When I would see a lot of filmmakers on my own social platforms come forth saying, just do it, just make it. If we can make a feature, you guys can too. So I think my mind was like, no, I can't do that. And then months later, I was like, okay, maybe I should just like try that and see how that goes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how it happened. It just, it was kind of back and forth. It was a lot of, I think the back and forth is because I was discouraged or because I was like, oh God, no one wants to hear about mental health. And I think it's now like, I'm trying to like focus on like where it's at today. The fact that like, we did it and, we shot it. And I mean, now we're making our world premiere this August at the Los Angeles Diversity Program, Film Festival in LA. So I think because it was like filmmaker, I think the more no's you got, it just was like, well, I'm going to show you, I'm going to go figure out how else to do this. Even if it took, a good 2 years in development, I think, before we actually got up onto a set with the cast and crew.
It's pretty impressive. I mean, I'm always in awe of like hearing about filmmakers like yourself who are working on a thing for years, mm-hmm. and it takes 10 years for them to make their thing or whatever. Like you gotta like, that's a lot of patience.
Yeah. But I'll be honest too, like it's taught me patience. Cause I'm very, I can be known to being like, I think stubborn too, where you're like, I think it's like one of those interview questions, what's your strength and weaknesses? And I always be like, well, my strength is I like to complete stuff, regardless of the ups and downs it goes through, especially project wise. It's like, I like to complete something that I start. But then sometimes, like the con can be like, well, I want to get it down right now. And so I think definitely the process of this, making the film, especially, I think I started writing it like, God, I think more than 10 years ago, but then, it didn't really become the story that is today until I was about like 2021, maybe. So it's definitely, that's common for a lot of like independent films, especially I think first time directors such as myself who's never done a feature. I've done multiple shorts, but, directing a feature is so much more. It's a lot more responsibilities because, you are filming longer days. You are spending, more time with your cast and crew. So you guys do get to know each other on both a professional and personal level. And it can be rough, especially making a film, whether you're filming on a low budget because you're working with a smaller studio or production company, or if you are like most filmmakers are doing today, where they're, putting films on their credit cards, or they max out their credit cards to, just make something.
Did you do that?
And I didn't do that. I did do that.
Okay.
I didn't do that, but I remember I had a lot of buddies who I kind of confided in and, got advice from before I started filming the feature. Buddies who did shoot features. A lot of them would say, yeah, just max out credit card, just max out, you'll be okay. And I'd be like, well, don't want to do that really.
Yeah. Who are some of the like independent filmmakers that inspire you, that you look up to?
Oh, I am a big fan of, think of Kevin Smith, because I feel like he was the first guy to do that. A first filmmaker, I should say. He made, what was it, Clerks?
Clerks, yeah.
I'm thinking he made that. And I just found this out not too long ago by my editor of The Extraordinary Ordinary. He was like, yeah, Kevin Smith maxed out, I think, like 3 to 4 credit cards to make Clerks. And I'm like, wait, what? I never knew that. And my editor was like, no, like, it's been in the news. Like, that's why, you know, he can kind of make whatever films he wants, because he like shared that later, I think, at film festivals when he got into Sundance. So Kevin Smith for sure, just because I think for me, I think anyone who's able to do that, you know, and reading his articles, like, because he was just so, I like the confidence side. He was just like, this is my baby. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make sure this is like publicly screened and people see this. To me, I think that's just very like it's warming, and it's also very like encouraging to other filmmakers who might feel like I once did, especially, who feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm failing, or I feel like I'm never going to get this made, and I feel like I'm doing everything I can. So Kevin Smith was kind of like someone I looked into a lot of his background. Robert Rodriguez, another one.
Yeah.
I want to say, especially today, a filmmaker, and I actually have him. I think when he followed me on Twitter, I had like a fangirl moment. I was like, oh my
nice.
God, I threw my phone.
He started with El Mariachi, right?
Yes, Robert Rodriguez. El Mariachi, and then he did I guess a U.S. adaptation of that, which was Desperado.
Yeah.
Antonio. So Robert Rodriguez, they actually, when I was in film school, we were assigned to read his book. He actually has a memoir called Rebel Without a Crew, and he talks about how his motto is, if I made a feature on $7,000, you can do it. Don't make excuses. You can do it. And he'll be like, no, don't say you don't know how to DP. Here's, a tutorial on how you can film your own movie, DP wise, cinematography, the person who shoots the actual film with the camera. So I think it was kind of like unfortunate. A lot of like those once independent filmmakers, people like Robert Rodriguez, Kevin Smith. I even think of today's filmmaker, Jim Cummings. He's the one that did Thunder Road, and it made all this money back internationally, but he still like puts on Twitter and Facebook, even he's very bold on, hey, filmmakers, you can do it, because if I did it, and I lived, in Wisconsin, and I still got to LA, anything's possible. I think those are the ones, like the filmmakers I would always look into more of their background, because it's comforting. It was like encouraging. It was kind of like they have a point, like, or you kind of read about their background, and I think it's like the typical, oh no, it sounds like they had it a lot worse. It seems like they're going through a lot of personal matters, financial matters, but they still kind of like rolled up their sleeves and got up and still, figured it out as best as they can to, I think, make that first feature film of theirs.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the movie Primer?
I haven't. Primer.
Oh my gosh. So Shane Carruth, the filmmaker behind Primer, made that, I think, for like $7,000 or so.
Okay.
And it's amazing. I think that movie is stunning, what he was able to do with that. And he's a guy that, like, he's only made 2 films. And there was like 9 years in between the 2. I don't know what the heck he's doing now. But on both of his films, or at least on the second one, well, the first one he acted, wrote, directed, produced, and then in the second one, he did all those things. Plus, he edited, and then he learned how to score the film.
Oh, nice!
Like it's amazing. Like I
Nice.
love him. He's kind of inspiring for me.
I'll have to check that out, because I'm wondering if it's like one of those films that came out of Sundance, which is also what's beautiful about some of these film festivals, because a lot of them are there's that cliche saying, I think I've told you before, where they're like, oh, you have to be famous first before you get the job. And it's kind of like, oh, so you have to be like a celebrity status before anyone ever look at your work, or before a studio like will ever pick you up. So I think most of those people, like I'm sure Shane, and along with like Robert Rodriguez, Jim Cummings, and then Kevin Smith, they're always like still like the independent filmmaker kid at heart. Like I feel like even if Kevin Smith did like a Marvel movie, he'd be like, so I'm gonna go like go fund my short form this weekend. So I think I'm assuming Shane might be like one of those where they're that teen, who always dreamed to like make a film, or that child who always want to make a movie. And to me, I love hearing that, because it's just kind of like kind of validating to hear that. And they're also, you'll hear their struggles, or you'll still hear, like, even if it looks kind of like that saying on social media where people post highlights of their day or highlights from a project. I mean, you never know the story behind it. And I admire filmmakers who come forth sharing, like, hey, this was hard, or, there were so many downfalls while trying to finish this project because of XYZ.
Yeah.
Just because it shows that they're human, and,
Totally.
things happen. Life happens. Even if you're trying to make, a big project, it's, things happen, and it's kind of like, it's motivating to hear, like, how they still, like, got through their day or to do it.
Yeah. I mean, they're like, we look at directors or CEOs or whatever, like these people in charge as superheroes, but that's wrong. Like, they're human just like we are.
Yeah. They're human. And I think more people, I kind of think, go back to that leadership role, or if they're in the leadership position, a producer or someone who's head of, like, a studio. I think it's amazing that a lot of those individuals are using something like social media, Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook even, or even Pinterest. I saw Pinterest doing this a little bit, where these, I guess, public figures, I guess, sort of speak, are coming forth saying, hey, I go to therapy, or, hey, you know what, I'm having a bad day. What are some tips for you guys, to, like, deal with a bad day? I just think that's always, like, so, like, beautiful. I think it just shows, because everyone's human. Everyone has, quote unquote, matters going on in their life. And I
absolutely
think it's just people acknowledge it. The more they, like, I think the more we see these public figures, like, being outspoken about that, it sort of like brings them down to, like, hey, I'm human. Like, I don't have the answers all the time, and I'm trying to figure it out just like you, just like this person over here.
Yep, absolutely. I was just going to say, so yes, Primer won the Grand Jury Prize at the Sundance Film Festival in 2004.
Okay. Oh, nice. Okay.
It's great. You should watch it.
No, I will. I'm wondering if that was around Saw, because Saw, the first one, I believe that was like 2004. So I'm wondering if he's one of those filmmakers. Because I never knew this, and I don't know if he ever did too, but I didn't know the filmmakers of Saw. That was James Wan before he went on and did, of course, Insidious.
But Saw, I liked the original Saw, but Saw made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Primer did not.
Okay, because what's interesting with Saw is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, because this could be a rumor, and I apologize if this is a rumor, but I saw, like, on, I forgot the film company website, but they mentioned that, like, I think the director of Saw and the producer were friends, and they both sort of, like, funded the first Saw movie. And then I think Sundance was where they got their distribution, and that's when they went, of course, bigger and made, like, I think it made, like, obviously, like, millions at that point. But no, I think I never knew that. So, I'm always, like, learning, like, new things too with, like, films, like, and how you're like, man, they must have had a studio or manager, agent. And then you'll find out that filmmaker was like, no, I just, like, I self-funded this, or my agent manager dropped me because I wanted to make a smaller movie.
Yeah.
But I'll check out Primer. It's, is it like a thriller or drama, or
it's a time travel movie.
Okay.
I would say it's only 77 minutes, and I would say
nice.
It's the best depiction of time travel I've ever seen. Okay. It's, like I said, it's only $7,000 budget movie, so it's very low budget, but I think it's amazing.
Nice. So definitely must have went I think I always call it the Robert Rodriguez. Robert Rodriguez just made another feature, like, on 70 Grand. I think it was for his El Rey Network, one of his TV shows. It was kind of like I don't know if, like, his old fans were, like, challenging him to still do it, or if it's something he wanted to do, like, as a kind of like documentary, docuseries special. I haven't seen it yet.
Gotcha.
But he recommends Safety Not Guarantee.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I saw that.
I love it. Yeah. Love it. Very good film.
Well, let's get back to your film, which is The Extraordinary Ordinary. I'm curious, like, how do you portray, like, real mental illness on screen? And, like, because one of the things that I have a sensitivity to when it comes to film and mental health is, like, how people get it wrong all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like, so how, like, where was your mindset going into this, and like, how aware were you of that stuff, and,
Yeah.
you know, the pressure of like, you know, I really want to do this real, and I want people to see that it's real. Like, how did you tap into that?
I mean, I'm so terrified. To be honest, I think that's something I went to like heavy counseling for before like I started picking up, where I was like location scouting. So I'm always still trying to figure it out, I'll be honest. You know, that's still like a common worry of mine. Like, well, I don't want people to think this is just how this can only happen. And I think what's been helpful is, I want to say, the power of social media. I think, you know, every time, just because we've been getting a little bit more press work for the film, is, you know, just kind of redirecting it to, this is no narrative fiction. You know, this is still, yes, a fictional piece, but yes, things that are going on in this film can happen in real life. You know, we aren't doctors. We aren't, you know, we're not licensed to give medical advice to anybody here.
It's a movie.
Yeah, it's a movie. It's still a movie where you're still paying to go to a theater or like a film festival to see it. So we did that at our panel, me, Madison, and I. We went to a panel exactly a week ago from today. And I was actually like worried to go on there. So I think what helps is like asking, you know, especially when you're going to panels or like doing any press junket, is just kind of asking the person like, hey, you know, could we put in there somewhere saying like, you know, we're not like doctors, like we're actually here to promote the movie as the artist, you know, the cast member, the producers, the writer, the director. So I think that's kind of, I'm hoping that kind of thinking that way or doing it that way will help. Just because, I mean, kind of like I mentioned, like there's been so many films that deal with, they're talking about the subjects that we talk about in the extraordinary ordinary. So it's still terrifying. It's still a little terrifying. Like, you know, I get nervous because I always get nervous when I see my films on the screen, you know, because I can be my own worst critic sometimes too. So I think there's like a lot, like I'm still trying to process, like, I'll be honest with you.
So what are you giving, like, what direction are you giving the actors when it comes to like, show me trauma, show me you dealing with trauma, or show me you dealing with PTSD? Like what direction are you giving these people?
I mean, I was very fortunate that when I met with Madison, Anna, and Alex, especially with them three, because I felt very, very mother hen. Because I even been going to my mom thinking like, I just want to take care of them, but like, how do I not like overdo it? And I don't know if it's like controversial to say, because I feel like most directors are kind of taught to not be so like vulnerable with their cast members. I've heard those sayings before, but I think because I wrote the script and I knew the things they had to do to get to a certain place to portray, you know, very, very like intense and scenes where they had to be very vulnerable. Fortunately, I was able to talk to them both individually. And I think because I had Madison on board, she was one of the first cast members to be on board for about a year and a half. Every time I would see her, we would talk about it. So it started helping kind of approaching, you know, the character from, okay, so this is, you know, why your character is feeling this way because of X, Y, Z. And fortunately, all my cast members actually, you know, including Anna, you know, Madison, Alex, John Posey plays the dad, and Della plays the mom. She's this amazing theater actress. Fortunately, they all would ask questions, or they would say, hey, so this character's acting this way because of this reason why. And I'd be like, yes, like, okay. So they were, I think because we just naturally would check in with each other if we're actually like shooting a scene, or, you know, if there was something like that, I don't want to say it didn't work, but there's something like I wanted to try, I'd be like, would you be okay if you can up the anxiety a little bit? Or, you know, if we can up some of the sadness here, are you comfortable? So I definitely, for this one, was the first time on a set where I think I was checking in with the actors like periodically, like on breaks. I said, or hey, if it becomes too much, and I told them each just individually, especially Anna, Alex, Madison, if it becomes too much, I need you to tell me. I'm not going to get mad. If you need 10 minutes, if you need 15 minutes, like maybe we can have a code. Maybe we can say like, hey, Nat, I'm going to be outside or something. So I think kind of being upfront with them about that, like, hey, it's okay if like you need to step out. Like, I'd rather have you like kind of like go take a minute for yourself.
Did anyone ever need to take that step outside?
Yeah, we did. It was during a scene which I actually had a lot of colleagues say it's probably one of the best scenes in the film. And we actually, I think we shot in like 3 or 4 takes because there was like a random, I think it was like on a college campus, it was like a random, that a sorority run where like the fraternities were running by and the security guards were like, well, you can get this done in like 10 minutes, go ahead and film. So the scene is one of my cast members, they're after a take when I was setting up with my cinematographer, I was looking around. I was like, oh, where's my cast member? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I think the bathroom. And I heard crying. And I went around the corner and I saw them crying. And I was like, are you okay? I was like, what happened? Or are you just like in character? So I kind of think because I already established that with, this individual, like, hey, do you want me to like step back? Like, you can let me know. I can like come check on you in a minute. So they actually told me like, I'm okay. Just like, I think I'm crying because I think I'm still in character. Like, I'm okay. Like, come check back on me in like 2 minutes if I'm not up and like out from behind. They were kind of like behind this, like, it was like a custom built like boulder, like where they, like it was a little seating area for students. So I think I was actually, kind of experienced that. Like, I think because that was the first time I experienced something like that. And the first time I did like a heavy drama that was diving into very, 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 I think triggery matters. I think for anyone, even someone who doesn't have mental health history with mental health or a history with trauma, I was kind of already expecting it would definitely bring up a lot of emotions for, I think, someone because acting, if you're stuck in that role like all day, I totally understand why it might be hard to kind of get out of that character and be like, hey, I'm actually okay. This is just fiction. I'm just playing a character. This isn't my life. This is, me portraying someone. So I think it was, I think after like an incident like that, when that happened, where my cast member was crying, I think it was the next day, or as soon as I got home, I texted, and before I like got the text, I got an incoming text from this individual, and they were apologizing, like, I'm so sorry I lost it. And I was like, no, I'm like, I'm actually really glad that you texted. I wanted to check in on you. I was like, do you need to talk on the phone? Do you want to come stay with me tonight? Like, I think with me, that definitely kept me more alert to if I saw anyone kind of going through like a little bit more difficult time, like on set or even before coming to set, I, wanted to make sure I was kind of giving them the okay, like, hey, if you need to pull me aside, just send me a text, or if you're afraid to come up to me on set, like, text, or we had a few interns like acting as the ADs on set, the assistant directors. So sometimes I would give the ADs like, hey, if so-and-so's having I think a difficult day, like, can you just like double check on them, make sure like they're eating and they're fed? And that can be the frustrating part too, because I think when you're directing on set, you can't always be attentive to everything, because sometimes you are like off filming while, talent's getting prepped in hair and makeup, or they're rehearsing for the scene that comes after. Especially because we did shoot very fast. We shot over the course, I want to say 17 days, but on a 13-day shoot. So we were doing anywhere from like 8 to 15 pages, which I think a lot of people don't believe, but a lot of it, the way we shot the film, it deals where we stick with the main character, because it's kind of to represent her anxiety. So it's like usually the minute she starts to open up to someone, it's where we'll see a standard kind of like 2 shots, what they call them, where you'll see like one shot of the character talking and then the cutaway shot of that person responding.
Yeah.
So that kind of actually made it fortunate. I have like an amazing DP. His name's Trevor Roach. He's a fellow Orange County native too. He went to Chapman University, and fortunately, I think that's what made it possible and why we were able to shoot a lot of pages. And I think just kind of all of us going in, I mean, me having a talk saying like, hey, let's just do our best. We'll get this done. Kind of giving like our ADs like a heads up, like, hey, if we're going over time, like tell us. So it definitely felt like a first time movie experience, I think, because I never worked with like an AD before, usually on shorts, usually just like me, my friends or colleagues, just kind of all like one man showing it, where we take turns to light a scene, or we'd all take turns with like crafty or getting lunch for everyone.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, it being your first feature, it sounds like you've created a really warm and supportive and empathetic environment, which is just, I mean, shout out to you for doing that. That's so tremendous.
No, thank you. And I think that was kind of because I've always wanted a set like that. And I think I mentioned to you too, like in the past, like I've been on sets that have been horrifying where, kind of going back to like, the authority role where they don't care if you're bleeding or if you faint. It's like, oh, you can't handle it. Well, don't be in this industry. Like, I think because I used those experience to even today where I'm like, I never want to have a set like that where I'm directing or producing, ever be like that. Like, it's a problem if anyone's, I think, set or work environment is disastrous. It's kind of like you have to look at who's running it or communication.
Good for you. I hope you become the next, I don't know, Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You know what? I mean, it would make sense. I knew who Spielberg was. I forget E.T. E.T. I went to like that 20th anniversary screening, like at, I think it was like AMC's when they were all showing it. But yeah, I think that was kind of, I mean, just like to kind of, I guess, wrap up that matter. I mean, it was, I think, kind of that mentality. Like, I just want to make sure everyone was able to perform, or especially I think Madison, because Madison's Bullock plays the lead, Erica. We are filming with her, like, but we're sticking with her a lot. So it can become overwhelming if you have that camera in your face, even if you're in a scene where her characters are talking to different people, but the camera sort of will stick on her because it's a long take. And she's kind of like, that's a lot of pressure too, where you're like, my performance is going to motivate the cameraman or Natalie. It's, my emotions are going to like cue them when I have to start moving or when I have to start, because she was playing characters where she has like a very like intense panic attack scenes. It's, I mean, very overwhelming. So I think kind of, I mentioned it was like to all three of them. I was like, have you gone to therapy? And, I want to say most of my cast or crew have experience with going to therapy or have expressed interest with it. So my thing was like, okay, great. Well, I think you should start talking to someone. Like, I just want to make sure like you're well. Like, I don't want to give you the wrong. My whole thing was like, I never want to give them the wrong advice. And I said, even if we're on, and I think that was kind of, that helped me. It was kind of establishing, I think, a boundary. Like, hey, you guys can talk to me, but I'm going to tell you up front, like, hey, you need to like go talk to someone. Like, I need you to do that right now.
That's great.
So I think I'm hoping, I mean, I still try to carry that into, I think, any work environment or even if it's a project not involved. Like, there's been times I had to call out a lot of colleagues or friends and who are also filmmakers, like, hey, you need to not do that project because you seem like you're just going to like hit a wall just because you're already like freaking out. Yeah. So I think it was a good experience. I think that's what made the film and then Making the Extraordinary Ordinary. I don't want to say it wasn't traumatizing because it was more, I think, stressful because just like any like film where you're shooting like a lot of pages a day, you feel like sometimes you don't have time to like think or eat. So I think I had to tell one of my friends, one of my good friends, Sean, he's a co-producer and he plays a funny cameo role in the film. He plays the bartender who's friends with two of the main characters in the film. I think I want to make sure I was also taking care of myself. So I would tell him, hey, I need you to yell at me if I don't eat anything. And he's like, why would you tell me that? I'm like, no, dude, because yesterday I didn't eat anything at all. And he's like, why'd you do that? I was like, well, I forgot to eat. Like, I don't know why. I think I was just like in my own little zone. So I think we kind of all did that. It was like, everyone was kind of giving each other permission. Like, hey, if you see me look weird, just, call me out. Cause maybe you got to snap me out of like a zone if I'm feeling sick or if I'm feeling like, anxious or, sad about something. Which I think we're very fortunate. I mean, I would like to think because I just individually had like that conversation with everyone and just kind of, I think we're all like being upfront with each other on kind of like how we're feeling or, we had a lot of first timers, for a lot of cast and crew. This was their first time feature. So I think, in all reality, we were all like learning together, the ropes of, filming very fast, a lot of pages a day to, if notorious, like some locations would fall through and then on the day of the shoot would be like, okay, so we got to scrap these pages. Okay, so we're going to have to improvise some lines. Okay, like here's what you're going to say. Let's rehearse it real quick. And that's kind of how we shot each day, kind of expecting, things happen, people get sick or people sometimes don't show up. So it kind of, I think the core team, the leads and my DP and AC was Toto. He's amazing AC and also cinematographer as well. Kind of, I think that was like our powwow every day. So we kind of had a routine. I think it's when you're filming, I think past 2 days, you sort of develop a routine scheduled with your core team on, hey, let's be positive, but you know what, if something goes down, let's not freak out. Like, let's try not to. If we freak out, let's do this privately. Let's not go off on anyone. Let's try to figure it out.
That's great. That's so cool.
So I think that comes from a lot of, kind of counseling. I'll be honest. I went to counseling in I think 2 months every week for 2 months. Just because I was kind of both wanting to learn, kind of settle my nerves about doing the feature film for first time, and also kind of learn, as I know I mentioned, my big thing was, I don't want to be a therapist on set, but, I also want to be empathetic. I don't want to, do the wrong approach of I don't want people to think I'm trying to give medical advice or, advice that's not in my hands.
Of course.
So I think that's what made it very positive. It's a hard film. Definitely, we're all anxious to see it, and we're having a cast and crew screener next month for the people who are part of the project. Just because they haven't seen it yet, or if some have seen it, it's been clips of it. So I'm really excited. We just booked a venue about a week ago, so I'm already jazzed to start screening it.
Yeah. And so as we start to wrap up here, the premiere will be in LA in August?
Yes. So the premiere, we got the news last week that we'll be screening our world premiere. So this is the first official public screening to Southern California, people in Orange County or who can make the drive to LA at the Los Angeles Diversity Film Festival. And that premiere date is Sunday, August 23rd. So is it a little over 2 months, I believe? It's a little over 2 months we'll be screening. So the film was picked as an official selection. And with film festivals, what's awesome is usually I think the film festival coordinators, she liked the content. And usually when there's smaller feature films made on a very low budget, or most of the time film festivals will be okay with filmmakers still working on it, but just having a finished product for the actual screener. Just because we are finalizing a few little tweaks this month, and we'll be ready to go come July, right after the 4th of July, I think, when everyone's kind of back from vacation. I know a lot of my friends and colleagues are going out of town for the holiday.
Well, awesome. I'm excited to see it in its entirety, and I'll try to release this episode maybe just before that premiere, so maybe we can get some butts in seats.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'll send you over the the information. I just got the link for tickets and, the address. It kind of has a breakdown with times, and there's other films.
Please do. I'll link them in the show notes.
Yeah. And then the thing is too, there's other, and I encourage, there's other web series, shorts, playing documentaries, other narrative fiction. So,
very cool.
Film festival. Yeah, I went, I think kind of a fun fact, I went last year as a guest. My colleague and friend took me, and it's just kind of it's kind of cool. It's kind of neat that a year later it's premiering there, because I was oh yeah, a year ago I was just here, walking around, looking at the different venues and meeting a lot of people who are now friends today. So it's definitely, I think it's one of those positive experience film festivals I've been to, or film event where, there are other filmmakers who are wanting to support others, or if you have a material you want to show them, they're very send it our way, we'll post it.
Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's an achievement.
Thank you. And I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Definitely keep you posted. We're excited. Definitely right now we're still currently pending some results to see if we get to screen at a few other film festivals. So a lot of the festivals, it's a lot of waiting. It's a waiting game, because there's some I submitted to last like last fall, and I won't hear anything until like July, August, or even September. Just because they do physical committees will screen like or watch like at least like 1,000 films just to like see which ones they want to premiere at their event. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll plug all your things in a moment, but let's wrap up the show talking about empathy heroes.
Yeah.
This is the part of the show, listeners, where my guest and I each list someone in our lives who just very empathetic. Could be a character from a book or a movie, someone we know, a friend, family member, doesn't matter. I will go first to give you a moment to think. My empathy hero this week is the writer Dan Simmons, who wrote a book I love called The Terror, which is about, it's basically like Moby Dick meets like some sort of what's Moby Dick meets like Stephen King.
Oh, nice.
So it's like it has a horror element, but it's also like has the rich sort of descriptive like sailing stuff of Moby Dick. It's great. But anyways, he's my empathy hero because he said this thing, quote, "It occurs to me that our survival may depend upon our talking to one another," end quote. Oh, which is true. We need to connect with each other like that like we can't go it alone. Like we learn so much from each other. So definitely. I just love that. Yeah. And that's why he's my empathy hero.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful quote. Let me think, empathy hero. I'm always like, there's so many, but I think because he tweets a lot and I love him on Twitter and I've met him before and he's like a super down to earth gentleman. It has to be actor, writer, director, producer, and multi-talented Mark Duplass. Mark Duplass, he tweets every day. And I noticed this, he's been doing this for like, I think the past 2 to 3 months. He tweets quotes about mental health, kindness, grief, and very, validating a lot of like his followers, or even, I know probably even himself. I feel like he's speaking from a personal standpoint, on like how things are going to be okay. And, you know, if you have a bad day, you're going to be okay. You're going to get through this. Or if you're having a hard time, he mentioned something, I think last week about, you know, if you can't talk to someone, if you feel like you need to talk to someone else, there's therapists, there's counselors, there's doctors, there's no shame in like calling up your doctor and just saying, I need to like come in. So he's been tweeting like these quotes every day. I definitely recommend like giving him a follow. I think he's like at Mark Duplass on Twitter and on Instagram. And yeah, he's my empathy hero just because he's works in the entertainment industry, I think I admire that he has a busy schedule, but it still takes the time to like self-check with himself as well as kind of reminding others, I should say, to check in with themselves and how they're feeling.
Lovely. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Natalie, where can people connect with you and learn, you know, maybe watch the trailer for Extraordinary Ordinary and all that stuff?
Yeah. So the best place would to check out our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter page. And the user for all 3 social media platforms is at the Extraord Film, spelled out as it sounds. And I'll be sure to send you the link too, the hybrid link. And also my personal Instagram social media platform is Nat Christine Rod. Lately I've been posting a little bit more about the film there, especially because we're starting to get few more announcents with festivals or upcoming screeners and events. So yeah, definitely, I think give the page a follow if you're curious to find out when our next screener is, or we do have like our trailer posted on our social media page. On Facebook, that'll probably be the best place to see our teaser trailer. It's pinned on I think they call it pinned. You can pin it at the top comment on your Facebook page. And some exciting news is we're going to actually have a official world premiere trailer come out in July. So I would stay tuned on the film accounts at the Extraord Film for updates on when exactly it's going to premiere. Excellent.
Well, yeah, all those links, listeners, are in the show notes. Maybe I can sit next to you, listener, at the premiere. Who knows? So thank you, Natalie, for sharing, and I'm very proud of you for making your thing.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me today, and I'm really excited, and I definitely I'm looking forward to, sharing this podcast. We're all excited to speak with you today.
No, happy to do it. And to you listeners, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's you, me, empathy. Hello, Alex.
Hey, Non, how are you? Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you. So you are a part of this movie written and directed by Natalie Rodriguez, and I'm chatting with a few of you today, and I'm pretty excited. So let's jump right into your story. I want to hear this first kind of big question that I like to ask my guests is, obviously this movie is about, talking about mental health. It's about putting mental health on screen and sort of destigmatizing mental illness. What is your personal relationship to sort of mental health and mental illness specifically?
Gosh, I remember I was probably 11 or 12 years old when I was first thrown into a therapy session with my mom, my dad, mom and dad, mom, dad, and sister, whatever the combination was. And at a very early age, I was encouraged to express my feelings and not sweep anything under the rug, not bottle anything up. Just be open and honest and true and genuine with my feelings, whether they were angry or sad or happy. I owe that to my mom and dad for allowing me and making me feel comfortable exploring that outlet. So
that's amazing. That's kind of rare.
It is, and I'm definitely fortunate. Believe me, it was uncomfortable. Those first few sessions, and I've been in a lot of therapy. But it's so incredibly healing and therapeutic, and this podcast is I'm with it because people need that outlet. We can't bottle anything up. It'll rot inside you, and it's better to face your problems head on as they come, as opposed to stalling or procrastinating.
Yeah, I mean, I had a very different upbringing where I shoved them down, and that was kind of like what I felt was my survival mechanism in sort of my household. I'm curious for you, you being raised in this, feely, like talking about your feelings type of place. Like what initiated those therapy conversations? Like what, were you struggling at all? Were you having, troubles? What was going on?
I think it was just kind of, growing up and going through puberty and wanting to just explore and be recreational with things and figure life out for myself. And, I used to have some battles with my mom, love her to death. But she, talk about a feely human being. She's a total roughneck and the strongest woman I know, and doesn't really have any sort of censor, which has definitely got her in trouble in the past, and I will honestly say it has gotten me in trouble in the past as well. But at the same time, I speak my mind, and I definitely think people relate to that and respect and admire me more so as a result.
I think it's a admirable quality. I think it definitely, to your point, it does take some nuance sometimes because, obviously people can take it the wrong way.
Absolutely. Some people just get really, really uncomfortable when, when people open up, and, we just need more people like that in the world to, just encourage others to prove to them that it's totally okay to show signs of vulnerability and just be open and honest and true with whatever headspace you're feeling.
Yeah, because it's all real. We all experience it.
We're all living our different truths.
That's right. So can you give me some examples of, certain vulnerabilities you share with like the people you love, the people in your life, struggles you share?
Yeah, I'm the first person. My friends are everything to me. They are my world, my life. I have some of the best friends in the world. Buddies who I've known since I was 4 or 5 years old, who I still see, on a weekly basis. And I have no problem telling those men and women in my life how much I love them. And it's not hurtful, but it's, I guess it's somewhat disappointing when that sentiment isn't reciprocated.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's not felt, but just verbally. It's easy for me to look one of my best friends in the eye and say, "Hey, buddy, I love you. Like you're my best friend. I'm so appreciative and grateful for you." And when it's not reciprocated, or it's not the verbal exchange doesn't come back to me. Again, I'm not hurt by it, but I'm just like, man, I'm reaching out right
Sure.
now, and I wish you'd meet me halfway.
Mm.
And I think I definitely think I've rubbed off on quite a few of my friends, because a lot of them they tell me they love me back, and
that's nice,
and that feels good. And it doesn't mean that we're sappy, vulnerable, timid, emotional men. It just means,
well, shoot, you are an emotional man, and that's a good thing.
Exactly. Exactly. It's there's just so many fake, false male bravados walking around. People just think that they have to, uphold this certain stereotype of what they think it means to be a man, and it's all wrong, Don. It's all wrong.
It's absolutely wrong. I've been doing some recent writing about it, and it's so damaging. One, it's wrong, but it's also so damaging. I see it all the time. People just put on this face, and then, to your point, they're not accessing the emotions that they're truly having, and they're not doing the work of like figuring out what those emotions are about.
Precisely. Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people need a hug.
Hugs are the best. I'm a big hugger.
Hugs are the best.
So what brought you to the Extraordinary Ordinary? How'd you get into connecting with Natalie and that crew?
So I am good friends with our other lead, who you'll be speaking with later today, Madison Bullock. Bullock, forgive me. She is a former semi-pro figure skater. I played hockey in college, and just through the LA hockey world, figure skating world, that's how we met. She did a figure skating movie called Ice, and I think I submitted myself for some hockey player role, and we got on the phone, we started talking. She ended up actually hiring a good buddy of mine who I play hockey with weekly. But since then we kept in touch, and one day she sent me this script, The Extraordinary Ordinary, and said, "Hey, read this. The male lead it's you." So I read it and immediately related to the role, and just the material. It's heavy, it's raw, it's it's definitely an actor's dream to just kind of sink your teeth into such a role. So anyway, Maddie told me to read it. I did. I loved it, and I met with Natalie, grabbed a cup of coffee, and I thought just through Madison's referral, Natalie was okay. You got it. Let's go. She's a smart cookie, and she made me pick a scene and do a self-tape, and I went all in, and she loved it, and I got signed on to the film.
Awesome. What do you think Madison saw in the character that made her say, "Oh my God, this is Alex"?
God, this is always a tough question because I hate blowing smoke up my own butt. But
do it, blow that smoke, man. I give you permission.
I book certain type of roles, those being, just the tall, confident, dark, handsome, strapping man. And that was definitely coincidentally the role in the movie is Alex. But when I read it, I just immediately fell in love with what he stood for, which is true, genuine bravado. Nothing fake, nothing false. Such a feely man, and that's always been my shtick. It's okay for men to just show those signs of vulnerability. Men who you think wouldn't otherwise, just at first glance or first contact, or so that's what I immediately related to when I first read the script.
Now, I haven't seen the film. Can you help me understand the character, like what he in particular struggles with? Is he wrapping him? Is he struggling with a certain mental illness or anything like that?
Right. So, my character in the film is definitely, I wouldn't say his mental health issues are as deep seated as my two co-stars, as Erica and Bianca. Definitely more of a support system. However, that being said, in the film, the audience learns that I lost my mother to cancer at a somewhat early age, and that definitely has caused some grief and some trauma in my life. Bianca, played by Anna, plays my sister, not by blood. She has her own mental illness, which you will soon find out about. My father and I take her in, and she's, again, not by blood, but she's my sister, and we share a lot of heavy moments together. And I couldn't really pinpoint the exact. I mean, he suffers from anxiety. Alex suffers from anxiety due to probably a multitude of different things, but primarily just the loss and absence of my mother in the film.
How was it tapping into that grief and that anxiety and the trauma of experiencing loss, because loss is traumatic? Like, was it easy to access that? Have you experienced any of that stuff personally?
Yes, that was probably the easiest part for me. I lost my bestest friend since I was 5, about 4 years ago. And that was the hardest thing that I've ever gone through, and the hardest thing I know I will ever go through.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, no worries. I'm healed, well, it's an ever going process, but nothing but happy and fond memories. And also, when he had passed away, I was studying the Meisner technique, which just broke me wide open, and made me go to these depths that I wasn't necessarily hesitant or afraid or timid to hit. It just gave me more motivation, more encouragement to seek that sort of healing. And if it wasn't for the Meisner technique, I don't know if I would have, if my coping process would have been as healthy, organic, and natural as it was. But in terms of hitting those notes in the movie, it was easy, and it was fun. The camera doesn't lie when it'll pick up your lies, but when you're showing your truth, when you're feeling, the camera grabs it, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
There's something about like the entertainment industry that's, and this because you're in it, but it's, looking in at it, it's being someone who's not in it, like it seems very focused on image and presentation and appearance, right? How do you manage sort of that while sort of maintaining your own sense of self and wellness? Because there's this pressure, right? There's this pressure to kind of be a thing.
Absolutely. I'm my own worst enemy. I'm my biggest critic when it comes to watching and hearing myself on screen. I'm so scrupulous. So when I first saw a cut of the movie, I was like, oh God, and then I saw it, and again, those truths just they speak for themselves. The camera picks it up, and you trust your training, and you dive in, and you just do it. And if you're not up in your head, if you're not thinking, if you have your lines buried, if you're in the moment and living it, all those worries, all that judgment that you place on yourself just goes right out the window. And thankfully, the scenes that I saw myself in, I just cared about what truth was being displayed, and how the audience will receive it. I wasn't thinking about how my hair looked or my moments, or how I sound, or I just didn't really care about any of that. I was more so pleased with just how the camera picked up those honest moments.
Yeah, that's well said. And what do you, speaking of the audience and like how it sort of interprets that truth, like what are you personally hoping the audience gets from your, from this film, from your portrayal of this character?
I mean, there's not many Hollywood leading men who are able to show such emotion, to show that vulnerability. I think that's a script that Hollywood needs to flip. I think it's feeding into this stigma that, men need to be tall and strong and rugged and not show any weakness. And that's honestly, that was my mission in the film, was to just, hopefully prove to people that, it's okay to be feely. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to cry. It's okay to love. It's okay to be human.
Yeah, darn right. Well said. Well, as we sort of wrap up here, can you give me an empathy hero? Sort of part of like normal episodes, a guest of mine and myself, we each kind of list someone in our lives who's very empathetic. It could be a character from a movie or, a book even. I'll give you a moment to think about it if you want and go first. So my empathy hero this week is the writer Susan Sontag. She wrote this, quote, "Do stuff, be clenched, curious, not waiting for inspiration's shove or society's kiss on your forehead. Pay attention. It's all about paying attention. Attention is vitality. It connects you with others. It makes you eager. Stay eager," end quote. And I just love that because I think a big part of empathy is about paying attention to the people around you. It's about paying attention to experiences and listening and meeting people where they are. You talked about that at the top. So Susan Sontag is my empathy hero this week. How about you?
I love that. To be completely honest, Keanu Reeves. I used to work for his agent at CAA, and you know, he's been pegged for, you know, being just a great guy. You know, he rides the NYC train. He'll always stop and sign an autograph. He just flies below the radar, and he's been in the business for such a long time. And I was lucky enough to leave CAA and go work stunts on a movie that he did called John Wick.
John Wick's the best.
Oh, it's the best, the best stunt and fight team in the industry. But yeah, I was on location in New York for about 3.5-4 months working on that movie, and Keanu's just the best of the best. But one instance in particular that I will never forget. I was really close with Keanu, and you know, I think he probably asked, you know, the agent I was working for at the time or something. But my birthday was coming up, and you know, he's a Canadian guy. He was a goalie. We used to, you know, shoot the shit and talk about hockey. He knew I played, but I had no idea he knew when my birthday was. But he went out of his way to get me a gift card to this really, really cool hockey pro shop in El Segundo down by the airport. And I got this envelope, and it was just a super sweet short message from KR, and well, it's just
wow. That's amazing.
It just speaks volumes to the type of guy that he is. You know, he just flies under the radar, but he's so observant, and he listens, and he genuinely he cares about people.
That's so nice to hear, because he's amazing. I love him.
He's amazing. He's the best. I miss him a lot. But yeah, he's definitely my hero of the day, the week, the month, the year. He will always be my empathy hero.
Awesome. Well, Alex, where can people connect with you, kind of learn more about kind of the work you're doing, all that stuff?
Facebook, Instagram. I got a YouTube channel. My IMDb. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure to link all that stuff in the show notes. It was good chatting, friend.
So much fun chatting, friend. I really thanks for having me on, and hopefully we can actually meet face to face and grab a cup of coffee and maybe give each other a hug and cry it out.
I love that. You're in LA, right?
I am. Yep.
Well, I'm in Orange County, so I'm not far.
You're a hop, skip, and a jump. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Well, it's good chatting, and I'm excited to finally see the film. So.